We begin our exploration of percentages with a topic most of us don't like to think about much: sewage. Everyone produces waste, we just don't like to think about where it goes. But for people like Chris Duville, sewage is a job, even a calling.
So we're standing outside of the Headworks facility at the City of Boulder's wastewater treatment plant. This is where the raw wastewater comes to the facility for treatment.
His job is to take our waste and turn it into clean water and to minimize the impact we all have on the environment.
We're trying to, reduce sources of liquid pollution, and we do that using a combination of physical, some chemical, but predominantly microbiological methods. We like to consider ourselves stewards of the environment, receiving a waste stream that definitely needs to be cleaned up prior to release back into the environment.
To do this job well, to keep our environment as clean as possible, Chris relies heavily on statistics.
So I think we use a very broad range of statistical methods. First and foremost, almost with every data set, we're doing min-max average, as well as often mode, median, standard deviations, those statistical concepts as well.
This wastewater treatment facility serving the City of Boulder is a complex system relying on microorganisms to consume biological waste.
We're trying to grow and maintain a population of healthy microorganisms that will remove both organic materials from our waste stream, as well as, in particular, nitrogen. The pollutants in the waste stream are the food source for these organisms. We're using what's referred to as biological nutrient removal activated sludge, or BNR activated sludge. Specifically, we're targeting nitrogen. Nitrogen is predominantly in the form of ammonia when it comes into the facility. So the microorganisms will consume ammonia and convert that to nitrate, which is NO3. We let a different set of organisms convert nitrate into nitrogen gas, which then releases to the atmosphere. So we want to get it out of the water, predominantly because nitrogen is one of two macronutrients, what we call, and aquatic life forms and water bodies are very sensitive to elevated levels of nitrogen and phosphorus.
With the right amount and number of organisms, temperatures, and nutrient level, the plant operates very efficiently, and the quality of the water discharged into the creek is very high.
That's the dirty water we start with, and the end product is to turn it into a liquid product, which goes back into the creek, and a solid product, which we call our biosolids, which gets applied to farmland. So we start with this and turn it into this and this.
Downstream communities will use our wastewater repeatedly by the time it gets down to New Orleans. Our wastewater is in fact becoming other communities' drinking water through indirect ways.
There are many variables that affect the quality of water that leaves this plant. Some of these can be controlled by the operators, but some are beyond their control, such as the amount of wastewater that arrives.
Wastewater never stops. We have very indirect control over what comes to us.
The flow of sewage is beyond the control of the plant, and therefore they need to know how much to expect. What's the average flow per day? What's the peak flow? How much more is the maximum flow compared to the average flow during a year? A great way to deal with the question is to ask, what's the percentage increase at the peak over the average? We get the percentage by dividing the peak daily flow by the average flow and then multiplying by 100. So for January, 12.4 over 11.3 multiplied by 100 equals 110. Now the beauty of turning the data into percentages is that it's now easy to see the extent of the peak relative to the average. The peak for January is 110% of the average. In other words, the peak is 10% higher than the average. We show this in column 4 not just for January but for each month. Because we now have a figure based on 100, it's clear that the peak is 10% more than the average in January. We show the percentage increase in excess of the average in column 5. So percentages immediately enable us to make meaningful comparisons. It's now obvious that the extent to which the peak exceeds the average flow varies by just 5% in February and 34% in June, something not at all obvious from the consideration of the first two columns. Percentages have proved invaluable. A percentage doesn't mean very much unless we ask, percentage of what? We can do that in the context of book prices or the price of any other commodity, but we can do it for a whole range of things, including looking at election results. Brighton Hill, a district of Basingstoke, is the site of a close-fought election for a seat on the county council. This ward was held by the Liberal Democrats, but this time the Labour candidate, Carolyn Wooldridge, is thought to have a serious chance.
One of the reasons why I think we stand a chance this time, because people are just welcoming us back. And it has been swinging our way, certainly, especially the last few nights, it's been really swinging our way.
To win the election, Carolyn needs to get more votes than any other candidate in the first-past-the-post system used in UK elections. Just after 10 o'clock, and already the ballot boxes are arriving from all over the borough. Soon the count will be underway and we'll know the results of the election. So this is beginning to look quite exciting. How do you feel?
I'm not going to say anything at the moment. I think I'll get more than 100 votes, which is what I got last time, so that's good. Is that right?
Oh, go on, you're hoping to do a little bit better than that.
We'll see how it goes.
I, Dorcas Bunton, being the returning officer at the election of a borough councillor, do hereby give notice that the number of votes recorded for each candidate at the said election is as follows.
Carolyn won the election. What do you think about this result?
Oh, tremendous result, absolutely tremendous. It was a really tense count, and you know, to actually see the win, it's just unbelievably good.
But by how big a margin did she win? It was actually very close, just 43 votes more than the candidate in second place. But can we get a sense of just how close by relating it to the size of the electorate in the area? We can, armed with an understanding of percentages. The percentage of votes received by any one candidate is given by the formula votes received divided by the total votes counted multiplied by 100. So for Carolyn Wooldridge, we have 579 over 1,569 multiplied by 100 gives 36.9%. For Thomas Mitchell, we have 536 votes of the 1,569 total votes, so 536 over 1,569 times 100 is 34.2%. So the winning margin is 36.9 minus 34.2, 2.7% of the votes counted. Percentages give us a good measure of how close or otherwise the election result is. Sometimes we want to know how much more a firm produces as a result of the investment in new capital equipment. This chicken processor processes 8,000 chickens every hour. Before the introduction of this automated line, the company only processed 3,000 per hour. So the investment has increased throughput by 5,000 chickens an hour. But that figure by itself doesn't tell us much. What we want to know is what's the proportionate or the percentage increase in output as a result of the new investment. we can do that calculation quite simply. We find the increase in the chicken processing output by taking the current output and expressing it as a proportion of the original output multiplied by 100 gives 8,000 over 3,000 times 100 is 267%. So the percent increase in output is 267 minus 100 is equal to 167%. A very common way we can use an understanding of percentages is in shopping. Lots of goods are discounted in some way, but people don't always find it easy to work out which of the deals offers the best value. And what's the best value to the bookshop isn't always what's best for the customer. Maggie's looking at buying some books in Waterstones.
Which one is the better deal? Buy one and get the second half price, or buy 3 for the price of 2?
We can discover the answer with an understanding of percentages. So let's calculate the savings on the discounted books first of all by thinking about the offer buy one, get a second for half price. So Maggie will pay 100% for the first book plus 50% for the second book, and we express that as a proportion of 100% for the first one plus 100% for the second one if she wasn't getting a discount. That is to say 150 over 200, which gives us 75%. We didn't need to multiply by 100 as we did before, because of course these numbers are already expressed as percentages. So expressed as a reduction on the full price, 100 minus 75%, she's got a 25% reduction in the price. Now consider buying 2 and getting a third one free. Maggie's going to pay 100 plus 100 plus nothing for the third one over the full price, 100 plus 100 plus 100. That is to say 200 over 300, which is 67%. Or expressed as a reduction on the full price, 100 minus 67 equals 33%. The reduction is bigger in the second case, but she has to make a bigger outlay to get it. Notice we simplified the calculation a little by assuming that the price of each book is the same.
We trialled sort of buy one get one half price as a mechanic that's sort of worked in other retailers. For the retailer, it offers a lot better margin, so because you're only selling 2 books and you're getting a better discount on that, so the profit on those books that you sell is actually better than the 3 for 2 offer, which is the slightly lower margin on the sales. In sales though, you actually will find you'll sell more on a 3 for 2. Although we got a better margin on a buy one get one half price, we might sell less, so it's which balance works best, really.
We meet percentages not just in the context of prices, but whenever we wish to consider proportionate rather than absolute changes. Percentages are not the only way to calculate proportionate changes, but they can certainly be a very useful way.